So here we go. Here we go. It's another ODM practice day. And we have been requested by Chosen One. Play as the Dwarves up against his greenskins. We've gone for a gyrocopter build since I heard that members in ODM were having troubles against it as of late. So if Chosen One is able to defeat it, then things should go rather smoothly. Now, the thing about the gyrocopter build is that you really want your steam cannons to be focusing goblins, and then you want your other gyrocopters, your single target gyrocopters, to be focusing things like sorry, there's a lot to micro right now. You want the single target gyrocopters to focus things like trolls, focus Azag, and so on. Generally what they want to be hitting. Now we are losing one of our high single entity targeting gyrocopters just due to the goblins, but it's not too terrible. We can dodge the goblins fairly well. Azag is coming in, but we can target him down with the gyros and likely we'll be able to chase him off. I don't foresee too many problems here. We'll boost up the leadership too by feinting some charges into the targets, and then we should be fine. Now, we are still taking a lot of damage, but we've done a lot to Azag, which is nice. But he has caught some of the gyros, and they are running now. That's definitely unfortunate. Some black orcs have also made their way in, and we might be able to get some bombs on them. So we'll do that, but we don't want to waste too many since those guys will, they haven't really clumped up yet, so it's not really worth it to be spamming too many bombs at the moment. Now, this skirmishing corps has done quite a bit so far. It's actually prevented me from getting a lot of my gyrocopter value in. But as the frontline engagement begins, we'll see how this goes. We still have a bunch of gyros. Our what are these guys? Bugmen should be able to do well. Fanatics have gone down, but they shouldn't do too much. The infantry has sort of clumped up now too, so we can begin dropping bombs, and hopefully that'll go well. We're just positioning on top of these guys so that we can get some nice bombing runs, and that should be able to rout off a lot of the infantry. A lot of these orcs on the center here, we should be able to rout them off fairly easily. Then we're going to bounce upwards towards the black orcs, bring in our gyrocopters there to support, and if we can rout off the black orcs, that would definitely be good. As for here, it's just some goblins. Should be able to rout them off too. And let's see, how do we want to deal with Azag? We don't have a lot of gyrocopters left to really effectively deal with him. Really, the gyro bomber is the only choice target here. But now that he has disengaged, the gyro bomber might be able to work out there. As for the black orcs, it looks like we have dealt with them. And if it's just trolls left, they will actually trade pretty badly into all of our troops. They rout fairly easily. Grombrindal can probably finish them all. We'll just drop some more bombs, continue routing off these troops, and we're trying to snipe out Azag here, since the leadership is so important for the greenskins. If we can actually chase them off, that would be really good. He's throwing down spirit leeches on our gyrocopters. They are falling, but we're still doing okay. The longbeards have held quite well, but the skirmishers are coming in now, and they'll be able to peel my gyrocopters off of Azag. Definitely not great, but we're looking to see if we can actually win the infantry fight here. That is one of the more important things. So we'll be dancing around trying to force a win via that method. Let's see, these goblins will have to be careful that they don't overstagger my gyrocopters. And Grombrindal, he's going to give all of these guys unbreakable so that they don't rout off to the trolls. You can rout off the trolls enough times, then they won't come back. That would be optimal, and as long as we micro with the gyro bomber, the archers shouldn't be able to get too much damage. We'll even bring it in for a charge against the trolls, and that should rout them off as long as their leadership is low enough, but it looks like they're still remaining fairly high. Now, let's see, I guess we'll just focus fire the trolls instead with the gyrocopters, and hopefully that'll do okay. As for Azag, he has managed to live through all of this, and that could definitely be a problem. But if we can rout off these trolls, that would definitely help us out a lot. That's a second route from them, but I don't know if I can get the third route. The fact that Azag is still alive is definitely a problem. But Grombrindal at fairly high HP is pretty nice hope for me. So on the infantry fight, we've done fairly well. Azag is pretty low, and we're going to be bringing in the gyro bomber again to try and snipe him out. We'll get the gyrocopters here too, since they're getting skirmished to death. Hopefully they can finish him off, but I'm not entirely sure. The fact that these skirmishers are still around is definitely a problem. And so far it's looking like a pretty close game. Another spirit leech going down on my gyrocopters. That will finish them off. Which is pretty unfortunate. They still had quite a bit of ammunition. We're actually nearly out of gyrocopters now, but things are not lost yet. The rusty arrows are probably the biggest threat that we'll have to worry about, since they do have a lot of AP. So we're going to be charging them with long beards and seeing what we can do there. These orc archer boys have pretty decent AP too. So definitely a lot of things to worry about. Goblin archers now retreating. Azag landing in the midst of my long beards. We're going to get some free hits on top of them. Just with the mass of the long beards, it'll take a little bit more effort to actually get out of there. As for these goblin archers, we'll charge them with the gyrocopter, and that should slow them down just a tiny bit so our long beards can catch them. We do really want to keep this gyrocopter alive though, since if it does die, then we no longer have the leadership debuffs that come with its mobility. And it's it can't charge things in the back, which is pretty nasty. We definitely wanted to be able to do that, since as you can see in just a second, it really helps for routing things off. Goblins get really low on leadership, and it's a free route. So very important that we keep this gyrocopter alive. In fact, it even shatters those units. And for stuff like the trolls, it's extremely important. So we're going to be controlling that as best as we can. As for these goblin archers, they will be able to maneuver away from me. Not great, not terrible, since they're nearly out of ammunition anyways. A big volley does go down on my longbeards. It looks like Azag wants to take a fight against the gyrocopter. We're going to see if we can bait him into landing by charging these guys in the back. If Azag does land, that will be the end of him. And he does. We'll slow him with Grombrindal, and we're going to try and take him out. So charging him with all of our troops, we get him to rout. He does throw down a big AoE, but he's at low enough HP where he's basically off the map. He's still getting slowed by Grombrindal, and it looks like a big dive in from the skirmishers to try and chase him off is coming in now, which means that we'll be able to trade up into these guys. So generally pretty good. If we can get this gyro bomber out alive too, that would be good, but it looks like its leadership is about to break, and it does. Very unfortunate, and it's Grombrindal against a bunch of trolls. The leadership for my dwarves is beginning to break, but they're just barely holding. And Azag is at extremely low HP. So I'm sort of worried that the trolls are going to cause a lot of issues here. We do have some sneaky Bugman's Rangers though in the back that might be able to do well. But I think Azag will be able to finish off my gyro bomber, which is not great. But we're going to keep these Bugmans in the back, and their strategy is going to be firing in on the trolls to break their leadership in the late game. So we're going to move them in to make sure that they don't get spotted, and if we can shoot the trolls in the back, that would be great. We'll brace our longbeards, and then we'll use Grombrindal to fight the trolls. Meanwhile, the Bugmans slowly sneaking up could prove extremely important here. But a wah comes down from my opponent. The longbeards break, And it's just Grombrindal, but the Bugmans are in range. We're going to fire away with them. And let's see how this goes. We'll use a flash bomb too to reduce their melee defense. And if we can get these guys to rout, that would be the best case situation. We even slow the skirmishers so they can't come in to help. And if Grombrindal can rout off the trolls, it's a win. If he doesn't, it's a pretty rough situation. So that's basically it. That's going to be determining the game probably here. So let's see how it plays out. My Bugmans do get charged into. They will be dying. And it is just Grombrindal now. I think, man, the fact that my miners still have full ammunition is really bad, but whatever. Grombrindal. He doesn't have anti-large, but he does fairly well against trolls. He just takes a lot of damage, which definitely isn't the best. The fact that Azag is still alive somewhere too is pretty bad, but oh, actually he's shattered somewhere along the line, which means we may get a huge leadership debuff from all of these troops here. And there we go, one of the trolls routes off. Another one is looking like it may very well rout. And there we go, that's the third rout from it, which means that it shatters. And I think Grombrindal's actually gonna win it. Wow, would you look at that? This is why it was so important to finish off Azag. Because the Greenskins, they are not well known for their leadership. Look at all this value running off the battlefield. Pretty brutal. And I think that's gonna be it. Oh my goodness, Grombrindal, what a beast. That late game route from Azag was super brutal. So nice. Here we go, we even have another flash bomb. We'll use it to catch out these goblin archers. And if they rout off before these guys rally, then that's it. And they're gone. Oh my gosh. That's brutal. Grombrindal, what a beast. Oh my gosh. What a game to start the day. Is it a victory yet? I guess he has some stealth units somewhere, some unbreakable units. Wow. That was disgusting, but really fun. Yep. Yeah, you look away for 10 seconds and all the trolls rout. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Dwarfs versus Greenskins. Zombie. Oh my gosh. So there we go, Grombrindal. Not even paying for himself, but the fact that he was at high HP really helped. Essentially, we sniped out Azag with the gyrocopters and the cannon, which did pay for itself. Focused firing Azag. Pretty uncommon when it comes to artillery. The gyro bomber doing amazing with those bombing runs. The the gyrocopters. My micro wasn't as good with them, so they didn't get nearly as much value. We could have actually done much better that game, which is pretty scary. I also really like the Longbeards. They held basically forever, which, yeah, I think that was a really fun game. For this next game, we're now playing Bretonnia against the Greenskins. Got Fey Enchantress, Paladin, Gotrek against the double Arachnarok spiders of my opponent. He has a bunch of rock lobbers actually, which are a little bit scary. We don't want our knights to get hit by them, so we'll pull them back to safety and bring them in the late game. But the Hippogriff Knights, they can fly in. They don't want to get spirit leeched by the River Troll Hag. And if they can avoid that, then they should be just fine. So it looks like he's targeting down my Peasant Bowmen to start. A good choice. And he also has a lot of big guns in the back line. So definitely many threats here. Since the big guns are defending the back line, we will likely be trying to defend the front using our using our cavalry. And the hope is that our cavalry can rout off the normal orc boys, and then the big guns will charge them in with the hippogriff, charge them in the back with the Hippogriff Knights, and hopefully that routs them off quickly. Now the Fey Enchantress doesn't have too much to worry about given the amount of support she has with her. She doesn't want to get mithered, however, so we'll play a little bit careful with her. And with the Hippogriff Knights, you could probably hit the rock lobbers with them. while the spiders are occupied. So we can just send in our hero core straight into, I guess, the Goblin Lord here. Move up with our archers so that they can poison and so on. And then that'll occupy the guys so that we can use the Hippogriff Knights to fly in on top of all these. The Goblin Lord, he is getting bogged down. And we're even going to land the Hippogriff Knights on top of them just to see if we can get a free pick here. I'm not sure how this fight will go, but we do have the Fey Enchantress, we have a bunch of heals. And if we can kill the Great Shaman outright at the start, that would be quite good. We have a lot of archers that are coming in. We've also got our knights into the back lines of our opponent. Definitely a lot of pluses. We'll throw down a regrowth on top of the Hippogriff Knights since they are surrounded. We've also routed off the Orc Boys. So I think this fight over here is going to be going just well for us. We'll use the Holy Wardens to fight against the Orc Boys. That's a positive trade for them. And nice, it's a big old rout on all of these rock lobbers. I think we just took a very decisive engagement there. Gotrek can fight the other Arachnarok spider. Our archers will fire in on it. And the big guns for Chosen One haven't really been able to get into combat yet. It's a very good sign for us. With another heal, I think we've more or less secured the victory here. There's not a lot left he can really do. His big guns are going to get cycle charged in the late game. And there we go. It's a pretty clean victory. Actually, very decisive. We took a really good engagement. That's about it. The Hippogriff Knights on the charge are devastating against the Goblin Shaman. They surrounded him, pinned him down, and then our hero squad just moved in and sniped them out. Simple as that. Our cavalry was able to sneak in and rout off everything else, and in the late game they would have killed off all the big guns. Would have been pretty fine. Our peasant archers too, undisturbed for the entirety of that game, paid off for themselves in just a couple minutes really. So nice. Lord sniping courting. So for this next game, Chosen One wants to get a quick rematch since he did get his Lord sniped out rather quickly last time. And this time he's brought with him some skirmishers. He only has one rock lobber this time, which allows for this change in build. But it means our cavalry will be able to progress without getting harassed as much. We'll be focus firing the mangy marauders as they are the AP goblins. We don't want them to be putting in too much damage. And we also want to dodge with our heroes as best as we can to make sure that they don't take too much damage in the beginning points of the game. Our Hippogriff Knights will have to be a little bit careful too. And we're just advancing as fast as we can. I guess onto Skarsnik so that we can try and snipe them out just like last game. The Arachnarok spider isn't too scary for our hero squad. And we're going to be playing relatively the same, just charging in. We'll be using our archers to snipe out these goblins. They'll have to retreat. Just firing away on our peasants, and generally I think we're trading up right now. So that's a plus. Continue moving up with the infantry. Same with the peasants. The skirmishers shouldn't be able to dive in on my archers, and it's important that we ensure that. And we want our cavalry in place to start charging into the sides of his infantry. Now there are a unit of night goblins here. A little bit spooky. We'll see what they decide to do. Another spirit leech has gone down on my paladin. We do manage to dodge many of the shots. And you know what? We'll just throw down a regrowth on top of him. Should heal him up quite well. And Skarsnik now coming up. We're going to dive in with all of our troops to try and pick him out and see if we can do that. Let's see here. These night goblins are moving in. We'll use in our peasants to support, and we'll use our cavalry to charge into the sides of all of this infantry. Our Hippogriff Knights can come in. Skarsnik looks like he's having a pretty rough time getting down to decently low HP, nothing crazy. My cavalry's now getting countercharged, and there's a little bit to worry about here. The River Troll Hag is out of position, and I think we can probably snipe out Skarsnik here. So we're going to be trying that, bringing in all the cavalry to support while the archers deal with the Arachnarok spider. If we can kill off Skarsnik, that would be quite big. He has brought the paladin to fairly low leadership just because of the amount of damage he's done. But if we can just snipe out the greenskin lord here, then we should be fine. We also have a unit of cavalry in reserve that we completely forgot about, but we can bring them into support now, and hopefully they can win things out for us. In the meantime, Skarsnik still in the midst of the fight here. We've brought in a lot of our cavalry to support, and we're still trying to snipe him out. Gotrek will be very important for doing that. But our present archers are now getting compromised. We have some cavalry to support, and we'll see how well they can do on that front. As for all the cavalry bunched up here, we can cycle charge with them. And let's see, we also want to disengage to make sure that they don't get absolutely murdered here. They're actually having a little bit of a rough time. But the archers constantly firing in here is definitely nice. We have gotten a lot of these troops very low and on the verge of routing. In fact, I think a charge from our cavalry should be able to rout them off the battlefield. And Gotrek and our hero squad are still doing quite well. The Mortis effect from the Fey Enchantress is great. And we've also chunked down the Arachnarok spider to fairly low HP. The balance of power is even. We'll have to be careful. Some of our peasant archers still getting compromised by orcs. There's not much we can really do about that, so we'll have them fire at the Arachnarok spider to just get in as much damage as they can before getting routed off. Killing off the Arachnarok spider and Skarsnik here is our main win condition, as if we can kill them off, there's nothing really to kill off the single entities for us. So that's going to be the goal. We're using Gotrek to snipe out Skarsnik. We're running around at the Fey Enchantress to make sure that she stays safe. And I think we're good. Our cavalry is still just barely alive. It's just a little bit of greenskin infantry left. And we even still have the paladin with us. So in general, all great. Fey Enchantress still alive too. Arachnarok Queen now broken and will be running off the battlefield, no longer a threat. As for Skarsnik, he is dead actually, and he will be gone. We will likely lose the Fey Enchantress, but there's nothing that Chosen One can really do against my single entities here. I would say this game should be over in just a second. Our Hippogriff Knights can terror out the Orc boys, no problem. The River Troll Hag will be getting finished off by our cavalry in a second. And we even have some archers left. I think we're good. I'm quite confident. We'll still have to make sure that we don't accidentally throw the game, as is usual. But the fact that we have 28 Grail Knights still alive means there's not a whole lot that can really be done here. River Troll Hag now getting engaged on. We will be likely finishing off the Paladin. A little bit unfortunate, but we still have Gotrek. He's at full HP. We still have our cavalry, and the main source of dealing with that, being the River Troll Hag and the single entities, are now dead. So I guess we just close out the game now. We even have terror. And I guess we'll be regrouping with these archers at this point. Seems like the safest play. The rock lobbers are off the field, and some of our troops will be getting caught out by the orc boys and so on. But that's not too much of a worry. And there we go. It's going to be a GG from Chosen One. Another game finished. Essentially, we took a little bit more of a risky play there. We decided to duel Skarsnik, and it got a little bit close. He tried to focus down my paladin. We dumped a ton of healing into him, and it turns out the decision to fight from Chosen One was an unfortunate choice, which led to his lords taking a little bit too much damage. But here we go. It's a dwarf versus dark elf game. We're still playing up against Chosen One, and we brought a crazy, very heavy ranged build with us. There isn't a lot of mobility coming in from Chosen One, and his infantry isn't too elite, which means that we really just have to deal with the mobility, like the harpies, the cavalry, and then from there we're good. since our dwarf warriors and miners will be able to hold against the bleak swords and corsairs. And yeah, for the chariots we have our troll hammers. Should be a dandy old time. We are in range of the bolt throwers. They will be able to poke away at my troops to start off with. But their spread shot, it's not getting too much damage. We've spread out very thin with our troops. And while we're moving, slowing and stopping, it can get pretty hard for them to actually land their shots. Now the chariots have actually started to move in. We're going to turn our troops to fire in onto them. And then we should be good to go. As for our ranged troops, they can start firing away at the infantry of the Dark Elves. And the cavalry here can't really do too much. We have our slayers at the ready, which is good. Our front line can continue pushing forwards. Then as soon as we're feeling confident, we can move up with our troops. But I actually did make a misplay. We let some cavalry sneak in through the back, and that's a really bad misplay. Our rangers are getting caught, but we will be able to catch out 2 units of cavalry, hopefully for a single unit of rangers. So it's not the worst trade in the world. As for the frontline engagement, things are going fairly well. The chariots are trying to sneak around though. That could change things up. And some Black Ark Corsairs have actually made their way in. Pendulum also going into my lines, definitely not great. And here we go, the chariots are beginning to move in. We're going to fire in onto them using our troll hammer torpedoes, and the hope is that we can rout them off as quickly as possible. We're getting in a lot of damage. Looks like we'll be able to rout off one of them, but will we be able to get the second? Well, we'll have to see. We use our slow for our lord, and a lot of our troops are getting engaged on in the back line. We've also slipped up on the infantry front. A lot of the forces of Chosen One have actually been able to sneak into the back. We've taken a ton of AoE just due to miss micros from our infantry, but we've killed off one of the chariots, routed them off, that is, which is good. We are on the way to routing off the rest of the cavalry. And let's see here. We've also routed off the Black Ark Corsairs. So not the worst thing in the world, but things aren't going amazing. Our miners actually get charged without being able to throw their charges. We really botched this this engagement, but we're still doing okay. We routed off a lot of these troops. Our combined arms fire has done rather well. We have guard mode on a lot of these guys to make sure that they keep firing even when in combat. And what's this? It's a Supreme Sorceress. Not sure how worried I should be about her. We can try to get some sneaky troll hammer shots on top of her to attempt to snipe her out. We almost have another slow too from our lord. But we really botched up a lot of these engagements. We let our backline get compromised. And it looks like the Supreme Sorceress will be escaping too. Black Ark Corsairs, we can slow them down, but that's about it. I think this is a GG just based on our misplays. But we'll keep playing it out. Not completely over yet. Our troll hammers might be able to snipe out the Supreme Sorceress, which would definitely be a great pick. Our troops will be rallying, and that'll be good. Supreme Sorceress, very conscious of it. Good play from Chosen One, manages to keep her safe. The Corsairs are beginning to ride in onto our back line. The bolt throwers we only just now shut down, definitely not great. And once again we have the we have the cavalry moving into the back lines again. Generally not going too well. Let's continue moving up with our rangers, trying to shoot at the infantry and see if our troll hammers can rout off these dark riders. If they can, that'd definitely be good. Looks like the rangers will get routed off before the dark riders do, which is pretty rough. The double troll hammer torpedo can still be quite proficient. Some more chariots are moving into the back though, and that's definitely not great. So let's take stock. A lot of our range units are compromised. The Dark Elves are able to move in. To close in onto my troll hammers. You can run away for a bit and shoot them with the quarrelers. As for the chariots, if we can rout them off, that would definitely be good. Balance of power is looking pretty rough. But there's not a lot left on the Dark Elf side, I gotta be honest. There isn't a whole ton left. The chariots have also rampaged. So maybe there's a chance we can pull things back here. I'm not entirely sure. And a lot of these guys are rallying, but it doesn't seem impossible that we could pull through a victory. It will be difficult though. Troll hammers will be able to fire in on the cavalry once again. And there's not a lot really left for the Dark Elves. He doesn't have any chariots. I'm not sure. He does have this unit of Cold One chariots that are still operational. And just the fact that everything has rallied looks like it's gonna be the end of us. We don't have Grombrindal this time to save us. So we'll tap out. It was very close though, and if I hadn't misplayed letting my backline get completely run over, I think we could have won it. I think we definitely could have won it. The troll hammers did okay, the quarrelers did pretty good despite getting charged on top of. I just needed to micro better. I had some really bad misplays there. The miners didn't really get their value off. Yeah, the warriors didn't really get their value. It was a lot of misplays. I think I sort of want to play. So here we go. It's gonna be another Dwarf vs Dark Elf game. We've gone for the same builds, and this time I'm gonna focus on my micro. Control better. To make sure Dark Riders don't dive in onto my backline like they did before, we're going to be advancing with our camera looking towards our army like this. It's a little bit more awkward to micro your troops, but it means that you're always looking behind you. And given that our ranged army really needs to be focus firing targets before they get dived in on top of, it's pretty important that we at least turn our quarrelers to fire before they get dived in on. We can't really dodge the bolt throwers anyways, so this isn't this positioning should work out pretty fine. The Supreme Sorceress, she does have her AoEs. Have to worry about that, and that's not too bad. As long as we actually dodge this time, that should be good. She is a Sorceress of Shadow. We don't want to line up for penumbral pendulums. They are dodgeable even by the Dowie, so that should be fine. Our positioning this time too, we've deployed on the other side of the map. Makes it a little bit more awkward for Chosen One to get into position, but I'm sure by the time we actually dive in onto the bolt throwers, he will be ready to go and in a good position to actually fight against us. So it's just a slow engage, just wheeling our army around so we can fire on these guys. Our flank is covered against the infantry, which is definitely good, and we're keeping a close eye on these Dark Riders in the back. We shouldn't be surprised by them this time, and it's less important that our quarrelers fire on things like the bleak swords. It's much more important that they focus fire the cavalry when they dive in. So with all that in mind, we're going to continue wheeling our army, getting ready to turn on the Dark Riders if they do decide to make a mad dive onto the back line. Can inch up just a tiny bit so that the rangers can get in range, and the staggered movement too is also a nice way of dodging bolt thrower shots. They'll generally get a little bit less damage if you micro this way. So there we go, we are in position. Our quarrelers can begin firing. I do miss micro a tiny bit there, and it allows Chosen One to retreat with his infantry before we can fire off. But we'll just continue creeping forwards, keeping a close eye on the chariots and the Dark Riders. We don't need to worry about the infantry front since his lines aren't extremely elite. That's going to be a very important part. Now the Dark Riders have gone in range of my troops. You can turn the quarrelers to fire in on top of them, and then we should be able to trade decently there. We can fire in on the bleak swords too. And nice, we get in a pretty solid volley to start off. chariots are now moving in. We'll turn our iron drakes to protect that flank and just continue creeping up. The double bolt thrower isn't really something that forces me to advance too much. We're not too worried about it. Let's see, the harpies have gone into the back now though. The Supreme Sorceress is in range. We do get a volley off onto her, and we're looking to see if spells go down on my troops. We're ready to dodge at a moment's notice, and that should be fine. And we're generally pretty good. We can continue creeping up since we have no targets in range. Once again, it will help us dodge just a tiny bit. The chariots are moving in. If they do actually decide to go all in onto my miners, we'll be able to take them out. And nice. We're just taking the bolt fire shots to the face without taking too much damage in return. We're getting a few free shots here and there too. That's definitely very helpful. Now, some Black Ark Corsairs have actually pushed into the back. And what we're going to do is we're going to retreat with our army so that we can actually fire in on top of them. This will punish the fact that he brought infantry into the back, and that'll help out a tiny bit. The bolt throwers will eventually run out of ammo. I've accepted that they will be able to use up all of their ammunition. And yeah, he's trading 1,400 gold for the ability to snipe out some of my troops. It's a pretty even trade, maybe slightly in favor for Chosen One, but not the worst thing in the world. We'll continue our little dance here, just moving back and forth. And as long as our Trollhammer models stay at 21, we're still feeling decently confident. So we are once again in range of his infantry. He can fire in onto them with the Quarrelers, and he shouldn't be able to dive in onto this back line with just some cavalry and infantry. So we're doing okay here. Traded fairly well. These chariots can't do much aside from fire in lengthwise into my Quarrelers. That's not too bad. There are some Bleak Swords, Black Ark Corsairs along that flank that we have to worry about. But yeah, just playing very patiently here. He's trying to take out the Trollhammer torpedoes, but they still manage to live. We've done a good amount of damage to his infantry, which is very important. A spell has gone down. We'll dodge with the Quarrelers. And there we go. We successfully avenge the dwarves that fell last battle due to our micro mistakes. Now, some of the chariots have moved in. We are able to slow down one of them and focus fire them down. Trollhammer is getting in a ton of value, and Chosen One can't really easily dive in onto this position. We actually get really nice damage onto those chariots. The Black Ark Corsairs do reveal themselves, and we're going to focus fire them with a ton of archer fire. Should be dying rather quickly. We've also routed off one of the chariots too, which is amazing. And yeah, these Corsairs should be going down pretty quick. We have a lot of guys firing into them. We have Slayers engaging. They should be dying in a second. Now, next target is going to be these Dark Riders. Dark Riders, they die fairly quickly. They should get routed off by our mass Quarreler fire quite well. And there we go, they do take a lot of damage. More Dark Riders coming in along the side, but it's important that we rout these guys off first. It's because, yeah, it's very important to actually get these routes before you choose your next targets. Now, next point of contention is going to be the chariots. Going to see if we can pick them off. We have our Quarrelers firing in. Should be able to deal with them. And they are being microed fairly well. They might be able to dodge a lot of the damage. We'll have to see. It looks like they're still dodging. You know what? We're going to focus fire the Harpies instead. So the miners, they're going to be hitting up these Dark Riders. Our Slayers are in the midst of combat, exactly where they want to be. And now it's a big ol' engagement. We have routed off the Harpies, but the infantry have now dived in. Be pulling the Quarrelers into better positions and continuing to fire at targets. They can fire in combat as long as they take proper positioning. And our Iron Drakes should be able to do that too. Our Trollhammer torpedoes, that is. And we're going to be firing into the backs of the Dark Riders, just trying to get them routed. That's going to be the goal. As for the chariots, we'll slow them down so that our slayers can better engage on top of them, hopefully routing them off. Troll hammers too. It's very important that the troll hammers actually finish them off here. And let's see how well they do. Our slayers are able to dive in on top of them, but the chariots have been able to, the chariots have been quite successful here at bursting into my back line. Just a very devastating engagement. And things are looking bad again. I think we might just have to adjust the build, since this one appears to be getting run over by infantry a lot. But let's see how this goes. We do still have a few slayers left. Supreme Sorceress, a little bit of a sticky situation, but the chariots just staying alive at low HP. Definitely not great in the late game. It doesn't really matter how much HP they have as long as they're still alive, and that's going to be pretty painful. Nevertheless, they are hanging back, which is a plus, but I expect them to be diving in a second. The infantry for the Dark Elves is coming in, looking to engage onto my remaining gun units, my rangers, and so on. But we have secured our troll hammers. We've actually won some of the infantry fights along the front, and our quarrelers are able to fire here. We are running out of slayers, however, and that's one of the more rough parts here. These bleak swords have moved in, and they're diving in on top of my troll hammers. We're going to try to force them to fire onto the chariots because of how important it is to actually finish them off. But will they be able to kill them? We're not sure. We're not sure yet. Bleak swords are moving in. Troll hammers are still alive, which is a plus. And they'll be pulling back to these dwarf warriors who should be able to save them. Now, the chariots are moving in. We have our Rune Lord in to help. A pendulum coming down. We dodge it mildly effectively. It still does a lot of damage. And let's see. We have some dwarf warriors. The corsairs are fairly low. But let's see. What's actually left for the Dark Elves? Just a bolt thrower crew, some chariots. I only wish I had more slayers. That's definitely unfortunate. The Supreme Sorceress does move in. We can go in to try and snipe her. We are out of troll hammers, which is pretty rough, and it looks like she will be able to escape. So I think that's going to be GG. And I guess the build just isn't, it's just not effective enough. That time we did better with the dodging, but there's not much you can do when you don't have enough infantry to stop the infantry of your opponent. So there we go. Quarrelers, their focus fire was okay, but a well-timed engagement from Chosen One. Just a little bit too brutal. I think, let's see, if we went for some other builds, I think we would be fine. This was more just experimenting how a masked ranger build would work. So, we're up against Chosen One. He's brought with him a rush build against us with some tree men. And we're going to be focusing them with our sepulchral stalkers, eyes of the desert. As for his infantry, we have our chariots at the ready. Sylvan Knights have revealed themselves, and how are we going to deal with them? We are going to bring in Ark in the Black and Fate of Buna them. Should work out just fine. Our skirmishers doing a lot of damage to the dryads will pull back just a tiny bit. Aerial could very well be a problem, and the Sylvan Knights are charging in onto my horsemen. Pull them back, cycle charge the dryads, bring in one of them, and we'll have a Buna up in just a second. We'll summon some skeletons on top of the Sylvan Knights to hold them down. And we'll use the chariots to kill off the dryads. Now, we have had a little bit of an oopsie here. We got caught up by the tree men. They do actually stop my cavalry charge, a little bit rough. But so far, we're doing pretty good against the Sylvan Knights, which is a plus. We'll try and catch them out to the best of our abilities. Our cavalry's doing okay. Our chariots are doing wonderfully, and the stalkers are hitting the tree men pretty hard. Our skirmishers have done well against the Glade Riders. And how's Arkin the Black doing? He's doing decent. He's getting sniped out by the Sisters of Twilight. So it's going to be important that we use up his Winds of Magic as quickly as possible. As for the Sylvan Knights, they're getting caught up on a lot of my troops. And that does mean that they should be dying eventually. They're getting a lot of heals on top of them because of aerial, but they won't really be able to escape all of my cavalry. We'll be able to chase them off, and that would be a really nice win for us. The fact that our stalkers are still alive too is really good, and we'll bring them in to deal with the tree men. Our skirmishers have also won their respective fights. And let's see if we can pin down, I guess Ariel next. We'll surround her with Ushapti. And hopefully that'll be able to kill her. Arkin the Black getting pretty low. And that's pretty rough. There's not a lot Arkin the Black can really do here. But there we go, our Ushapti summon is down. We'll surround Ariel. Hopefully get some kills. Arkin the Black, now nearly dead. Throw in the last of his abilities. And let's see if we can kill off these Treekin and Dryads. If it's just single entities left for my opponent, that's definitely something that we can handle. And that's going to be the hope, because Arkin the Black is now dead. Not the greatest situation for him. He had a pretty bad day. Got sniped out by the Sisters of Twilight. And probably by this Waystalker too that I haven't really dealt with. Now the Sylvan Knights are still taking a lot of damage. They're nearly dead, but the vast amount of heals that they've gotten have definitely done quite well. I'm very happy that we did take the Stalkers though, since they were able to kill off the two Treekin units. And as for these Glade Riders, it looks like they will be collapsing in on my chariots. But it's not like I really need the chariots for the late game anyways. That's much less of a problem. What is a problem though is that the Sisters of Twilight are going to be killing off a lot of my troops. There's not a whole ton that I can do about that. And we're just hoping that we have so much infantry in the late game that we can kill her off. Yeah, essentially that. As for our infantry, we do still have a lot. And one very important thing is that we still have 3 units of horse archers at decent ammunition. That's very important, since in the late game, it can likely kill off the Sisters of Twilight. It's going to be the hope. And yeah, we'll see if they can do it. Now, first things first, we want to kill off these Treekin. We want to rout them off, since that's more efficient for our ammunition purposes. And to rout them off, we need to charge them in the back, but their leadership has actually gone back up, and it looks like we won't be able to do that. So instead, we'll just bring in the Stalkers, I guess, to fight the Sylvan Knights. And even though they don't have magic damage, Sylvan Knights are so beat up, it should still work out okay. Let's see, as for our chariots, they're fighting off the Glade Riders. It's just a back and forth there, nothing too crazy happening. But man, the Sylvan Knights, the fact that we weren't able to finish them off is a real problem. We let Arkin the Black get sniped out too early, and we'll see if we can recover from that. Let's see, as for the Glade Riders, they're still fighting really well in the forest. That's definitely not good. The Sylvan Knights have heal capped. And the Sisters of Twilight are at high HP. We're actually almost at army losses. But let's see how this goes. Let's see, the fight in the forest has actually gone badly for us now. We have secured a big rout on this end. But the Treekin are just barely keeping it together. That is not great. Oh, I still have skirmish mode on my cavalry. That's why they weren't moving into engage. That's pretty bad. But now they finally do. We should be able to rout off the Dryads. And soon it should just be single entities left for my opponent. But we did not overrun his forces well enough. You can see all these troops have been close to routing for forever, but they've just barely stuck on. And that is pretty bad. We finally do rout off the Sylvan Knights, at the very least. We'll finish chasing them off. And we're even running out of infantry now. We do still have a unit of Tomb Guard, and they're definitely not to be underestimated. But that's about it. We've taken a lot of damage. The Glade Riders are still alive, a unit that I expected. to get killed actually coming in the late game to be quite a problem. But still, a full, about a Tomb Guard's worth of infantry left is definitely nothing to be scoffed at. They are quite deadly, and against single entities, they can really, really grind them down. As for the Sylvan Knights, we'll be chasing them off to make sure that they don't come back. The Treekin will chase them off with the spears, and we could still win it. Ariel costs a lot of money, but she's not exactly a great fighter. And Tomb King's infantry, they will really fight in a grindy fight forever. But here we go, we're seeing the AoE shots from the Sisters of Twilight coming in, getting a lot of damage onto the Tomb Guard. But they actually shoot some shots off onto other targets, and that could turn things in our favor. If the Tomb Guard live, that's gonna be the win condition. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that they can win the late game, but they've taken a lot of damage now. We're down to half a unit of Tomb Guard, and they're not fighting in melee because of the Sisters of Twilight. Another big AoE shot comes down, and a big Soul Stealer now coming down from Ariel. Gonna be absolutely brutal, but we still have a unit of spears, we still have a unit of cavalry, we still have hope that we can pull it through, but army losses is very close now. So let's see how this goes. Tomb Guard doing well. As long as we don't get pushed to army losses, we're fine. So fingers crossed our cavalry can move into cycle charge. But let's take a look here. The Tomb Guard are fighting. You can see the Sisters of Twilight have already taken a lot of damage just from their initial charge. But I think, oh no, we get pushed into army losses. Oh man, I think we totally could have won that, but just a little bit, tiny, some mistakes here and there, making it so that we have our army crumble away. The Sisters of Twilight, very painful to deal with when you don't have Ushabti great bows to snipe them out. I think the main misplay is that we let Arkan the Black get sniped. We could have hit him in a forest, keep him safe, and he could have been spirit leeching the whole game. That would have won us the game. The Stalkers did really well, but the fact that the Treekin didn't rout, the fact that I couldn't finish off the Sylvan Knights, that was the main misplay. The idea was that I was going to rout off the right flank of Treekin much earlier, but they were down to like 5 leadership, and 1 leadership bomb would have done it. Very unfortunate, but a very close game. It was very close, even though it did come down. Well, yeah, it did come down to just the heroes, and I think that was pretty fun. For the rematch against Chosen One, we have the same Tomb King's build. It looks like he has the same Wood Elf build. Sniping, Arkan the Black. He has his Way Watcher, probably, moving in to try and deal with them. And we're going to bring Arkan the Black back now to make sure that he doesn't get absolutely murdered by all the sniping that can come in from the Wood Elves. We'll bring in our cavalry, cycle charge as best as they can, knocking around some dryads, slowing down their movement. We'll bring in the Nehekar horsemen to do similarly. Ariel gonna get sniped out by the Nehekar horsemen. We'll pull them back by the skeleton horse archers. Should work out fine. And on the right flank, we've had a little bit of a misplay. Some of our troops, they do get Yeah, they get caught up over here, but it's not the worst engagement in the world. Now the Stalkers are going to move in to kill off the Treekin. That is their intended target. And we'll be using the chariots to bounce between the different groups of infantry. That should work out pretty well. There should be some Sylvan Knights somewhere here. We'll have to try and deal with them. As for the Dryads, we have horsemen. They should be able to do fine. So, main line engagement getting underway. Ariel has taken a lot of damage so far, and using the horsemen to snipe her out has actually been proving to be a fairly good strategy. So we'll continue to do that. Sniping her where we can, and maneuvering our chariots as best as we can. Let's see here. Let's get our horsemen into a safer position. And you know what? It might have been a terrible idea trying to snipe out Ariel. That might have actually backfired for us. She does heal up a lot. But I think we should still be okay. Ark in the Black's going to be pulling back away from the Sisters of Twilight. Some Glade Riders have maneuvered into the back line. And that's pretty bad. Let's pull back our cavalry. They're having a pretty hard time. Sisters of Twilight now diving forwards on top of Ark in the Black. Means that we can poke her with our skirmishers. Ariel taking a lot of damage, throwing down AoEs, and generally giving us a pretty hard time. We'll continue running away with Ark in the Black and see if he can find some good places to run off to, because he's having a really rough time. We've done a lot of damage to Ariel. We've done a decent amount of damage to the Sisters of Twilight, but man, Ark in the Black, he's having a really, really rough time. Sisters of Twilight, though, actually continuing to move forwards. Maybe the misplay that we need to secure a victory here, since they're about to rout. And there we go, they do rout off, which is actually huge for us. We're going to chase them off now with our skeleton horse archers, maneuvering them so that they can more easily chase her. We'll even summon a unit of Ushapti if we need to. But no, the Sisters of Twilight actually come back. That is rough. That's really rough. And suddenly things are back very badly for us. Let's see here. How are we going to recover from this situation? Ariel is fairly low. Can we snipe her out? I'm not entirely sure. I would put a no on that. Does she have high magic resist? She doesn't. We could give some spirit leeches and hope that that does well. But now our skirmishers are getting caught up. And there's still a lot of treekin left. We have kept Ark in the Black alive, but it appears that we've misplayed with the rest of our army. And they're having a pretty rough time. The fact that the Sisters of Twilight are back too is definitely rough. We do manage to finally catch some cavalry with Ark in the Black. But too soon, too late. Likely won't be enough. We'll try to pull them to a safer position. Throw down some AoEs, but this time, yeah, we really got overrun by Glade Riders. Definitely not good. Let's bring in our cavalry to try and support there. Ariel still alive despite all the shots and all the sniping that we tried to throw down on her. Definitely not great. Definitely not great. We'll let's see here. We'll summon a unit of Ushapti just to kill these treekin. That doesn't feel optimal, but I guess it's what we have to do. Are there wild riders here? There aren't. It's just Glade Riders. I'll throw down a Fate of Buna. To see what that can do, just to clear these guys out. He'll leave us with our skirmishers, and then Ark in the Black can retreat. There's the wild riders that I was looking for, now showing up at a pretty inopportune time. A spirit leech coming on in. Do rout off the treekin, but this is a Twilight continuing to snipe out Ark in the Black. That's likely gonna be enough to close out the victory there. We have routed off many of these wild riders, but Ark in the Black, you can't really dodge their shots. And let's see, is there a way we can pull it back? We definitely don't want to leave early if we can avoid it. We have killed off the treekin. Ark in the Black, if he lives, then there might be a chance. Let's see, Ariel has healed herself up, which is real bad. Hopefully you can dodge the shots by sitting in the trees. But let's see how that goes. Ark in the Black's going to be sitting in the trees. We'll move in with our Nahakara horsemen to skirmish here. And we'll try to pick off the wild riders. Sisters of Twilight are still at fairly high ammunition. And how much cavalry do we have left? Not a lot, not a lot. Ark in the Black is crumbling too. Throw down a buff over there. But I think it's gonna be GG. Oh man, I really lost the cavalry fight that time. I lost it real hard. And you know what, to make it easier next time, we'll just go with Ushapti. Still a good lesson. Very important. The skirmishers did help a lot, but they wasted a lot of their ammunition on Ariel. I don't think it was worth it to snipe her. I could have spirit leeched her, but yeah. Let's take a look. The Stalkers still felt really good. I quite like them. Our skirmishers, yeah, the cavalry fight didn't go too well. And I think I just threw away my horsemen. By all accounts, we should have won the cavalry fight. Ariel was throwing down a bunch of spells, but this is not a lot. He didn't even have the Sylvan Knights, so the fact that all my horsemen died, I think, was just a big misplay. I still stand by the fact that we don't need Ushabti. You can keep Arkan the Black safe by keeping him very far away, but you do need something to keep back the Sisters of Twilight. That is pretty important, and we'll be moving on to the next game.